In a swift display of international diplomacy, South Korean officials announced today that more than 300 detained nationals will board a chartered flight back to Seoul in the coming days. The workers were swept up in a massive U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) raid at a Hyundai electric vehicle (EV) battery plant in Georgia last Thursday, an operation that shocked allies and highlighted tensions in America's immigration enforcement under the Trump administration. This resolution comes after intense negotiations between Washington and Seoul, underscoring the delicate balance between U.S. law enforcement priorities and economic partnerships with key trading partners. The raid, which unfolded on September 4, 2025, at the Hyundai LG battery facility in Ellabelle, Bryan County, marked one of the largest single-site immigration actions in U.S. history. Federal agents descended on the sprawling construction site, detaining 475 individuals suspected of immigration violations. Most were South Korean workers employed by subcontractors building the plant, a cornerstone of Georgia's push into green energy manufacturing. Video footage captured the chaos. Workers in hard hats lining up outside, some frisked and handcuffed before being loaded onto buses bound for a detention center in Folkston, Georgia. For the families waiting anxiously in South Korea, the news of their release brought relief. "We were terrified," said Kim Ji-hoon, whose brother was among the detained, in an interview with South Korean media. "But now, we can finally breathe." The announcement, delivered by Presidential Chief of Staff Kong Hoon-sik on national television, emphasized that administrative hurdles remain, but the path home is clear. This incident isn't just about paperwork and flights, it's a window into bigger issues. How does a nation enforce its borders without straining alliances? Why were skilled foreign workers building an American factory in the first place? And what does this mean for the booming EV industry that's supposed to create thousands of U.S. jobs? Let's break it down step by step. The raid, a dawn of enforcement. It started like any other workday at the Hyundai LG site, a 2,900-acre expanse of cranes, concrete, and ambition off Interstate 16, about 25 miles west of Savannah. At around 6 a.m. on September 4th, over 200 federal agents from ICE's Homeland Security Investigations unit swarmed the area. They weren't there for a routine check. This was the culmination of a month-long probe into alleged visa fraud and illegal hiring practices. Stephen Schrank, the lead agent in Georgia, explained during a Friday press conference that the operation targeted criminal violations of employment laws. Many detainees had entered the U.S. on tourist visas or visa waivers, which explicitly prohibit work. Others overstayed visas or crossed the border illegally. This wasn't just about immigration status, Schrank said. It was about protecting American workers from unfair competition. Eyewitness accounts paint a vivid picture. Construction foreman Lee Min-soo, a South Korean national who wasn't detained, described the scene. Agents came in vans and helicopters. They shouted orders in English, and everyone froze. "We thought it was a safety drill at first." Workers were herded into groups, their tools dropped mid-task. Some were shackled at the ankles and wrists, a sight that quickly went viral on social media. By the end of the day, 475 people were in custody, with over 300 confirmed as South Korean by Seoul's foreign ministry. They were transported to the Stewart Detention Center in Folkston, a remote facility known for its harsh conditions. Families back home scrambled for information, with South Korea's embassy in Atlanta dispatching diplomats to the site within hours. No one has been charged with crimes yet, but the investigation continues. Officials hinted at potential indictments against employers who knowingly hired unauthorized workers. Hyundai Motor Group, the parent company, issued a brief statement. "We are cooperating fully with authorities and regret any disruption to our operations." Subcontractors, often smaller firms from South Korea, bore the brunt of the scrutiny. This raid fits into President Donald Trump's renewed focus on mass deportations, a policy he championed during his 2024 campaign. Since taking office in January 2025, ICE has ramped up workplace sweeps, targeting industries from agriculture to manufacturing. But hitting a high-profile foreign investment like Hyundai's, that was unprecedented. The plant at the heart of it, a $12 billion bet on America's future. To understand why this raid stung so much, you have to go back to 2022. That's when Hyundai Motor Group announced a game-changing investment, $5.54 billion for the Metaplant America, the company's first fully dedicated EV factory in the U.S. Located on the Bryan County megasite, the facility promised to produce up to 300,000 Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis EVs annually once fully operational. But batteries are the real star here. In partnership with LG Energy Solution, Hyundai added another layer, a $4.3 billion gigafactory for EV batteries, bringing the total investment to over $12.6 billion. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp hailed it as the largest economic development project in state history, complete with $2.1 billion in tax incentives from local and state governments. The plant broke ground in 2023, held a grand opening in March 2025, and is set to employ 8,500 people, mostly Americans, by 2028. Why Georgia? The state offered cheap land, a business-friendly climate, and proximity to ports for exporting vehicles. It's part of a broader U.S. strategy to onshore EV production amid the global shift to clean energy. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 sweetened the deal with subsidies for domestic battery manufacturing, aiming to reduce reliance on China-dominated supply chains. Construction has been a whirlwind. The site covers 2,900 acres, with over 16 million square feet of buildings. Workers pour concrete, install robotics, and wire assembly lines around the clock. But with the plant still ramping up, production of test vehicles began in late 2024. Much of the labor came from abroad. Enter the South Korean workers, engineers, welders, and technicians sent by Hyundai and its partners to ensure quality and speed. These weren't low-skilled migrants. Many held specialized skills in EV tech, a field where South Korea leads the world. Hyundai, a global giant with roots in post-war reconstruction, has built empires on such expertise. Yet, U.S. visa rules are strict. H-1B visas for skilled workers are capped at 85,000 annually, and processing can take months. Visa waivers for short business trips. No work allowed. That's where things apparently went wrong. The workers, caught in a visa web. Who were these 300-plus South Koreans? Mostly men in their 20s to 50s, from cities like Seoul and Busan. They arrived on promises of temporary assignments, 6 months to a year, to train locals and oversee construction. My husband was excited to see America, said Park Soo-jin, wife of detainee Choi Young-min. He packed his bags thinking it was all legal. Interviews with released workers, a handful were let go immediately if documents checked out, reveal a mix of confusion and frustration. Some admitted to overstaying visas due to project delays, others claimed their employers assured them tourist entries were fine for consulting. One worker, speaking anonymously to Al Jazeera, said, "We built this factory for America. Now they treat us like criminals." South Korea's unemployment rate hovers around 3%, but its youth face stiff competition. Many saw the Georgia gig as a career boost, with salaries 20 to 30% higher than at home. Families depended on the income. Remittances flowed back to cover mortgages and kids' education. The raid exposed cracks in the system. U.S. companies often complain about visa backlogs, leading to shortcuts. In 2024 alone, Hyundai sought hundreds of H-1B visas for the plant, but approvals lagged. Critics argue this incentivizes violations, while supporters of enforcement say it displaces American jobs. Georgia's unemployment is low at 3.2%, but rural areas like Bryan County need every opportunity. Negotiations. From crisis to charter flight. News of the raid hit Seoul like a thunderbolt. By Friday, President Lee Jae-myung, elected in a surprise upset in 2024 on a progressive platform, vowed full support for his citizens. The rights of South Koreans and our company's economic activities must not be unfairly infringed, he declared. Foreign Minister Cho Yun expressed grave concern and regret, dispatching a team to Georgia. Behind the scenes, talks heated up. South Korea leveraged its status as a top U.S. ally, think military bases, trade deals, and shared tech interests. Just 2 weeks before the raid, Presidents Trump and Lee met to discuss a $350 billion South Korean investment in U.S. energy, including lower tariffs on EVs. The timing couldn't be worse. By Sunday, a deal was struck. Kang Hoon-sik announced the workers' release pending paperwork, with Seoul footing the bill for a charter flight, likely a Korean Air Boeing 777, accommodating all 300+. This is a humanitarian gesture, he said, hinting at future visa reforms for business travelers. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security confirmed the agreement but offered no details, citing ongoing probes. Foreign Minister Cho heads to Washington tomorrow for follow-up talks, potentially easing tensions. Analysts see this as a win-win. America upholds the law, South Korea saves face. Reactions: outrage, support, and social media storm. The world didn't stay silent. In South Korea, protests erupted outside the U.S. Embassy in Seoul, with banners reading, "Free our workers." Media outlets like the Korea Herald called it a diplomatic embarrassment. President Lee faced domestic pressure. His approval ratings, already shaky, dipped further amid accusations of weak U.S. ties. In the U.S., reactions split along familiar lines. Trump supporters cheered the raid as tough on-crime action. Finally, putting Americans first, tweeted one user, echoing campaign rhetoric. On X, formerly Twitter, posts ranged from "hiring illegals is a crime, doesn't matter if they're Korean," to concerns about economic fallout. One viral thread questioned, "Who's gonna finish the factory now?" racking up thousands of views. Critics, including immigrant rights groups, decried the overreach. The American Immigration Council called it a highlight of Trump policy chaos, noting some detainees had legal status. In Georgia, a protest on September 6 outside the plant drew 200 people, led by activist Nat Villasna, who shouted, "These workers built our future, don't tear it down." Governor Kemp walked a tightrope. "We support the rule of law," he said, but added, "This project is vital to our economy." Hyundai shares dipped 2% on the Seoul exchange Friday, recovering slightly on release news. Social media amplified the divide. Hashtags like #Hyundai raid and #Free Korean workers trended globally. One post lamented, "South Korea invests billions, and this is the thanks." While another fired back, "Laws apply to everyone, ally or not." CNN aired reactions from Seoul, where citizens expressed shock at the rude awakening for their U.S. dreams. Experts weighed in too. Dr. Elena Kim, a Korea-U.S. relations specialist at Georgetown University, told NPR, "This could chill foreign investment if not handled carefully. But it also forces a reckoning on visa policies." On the flip side, immigration hardliner Mark Krikorian of the Center for Immigration Studies praised it. "No exceptions for cronies." Broader implications: borders, batteries, and bilateral bonds. This isn't isolated. U.S.-South Korea ties are rock-solid, $170 billion in annual trade, joint military drills, and tech sharing against North Korea. But Trump's "America First" agenda has tested alliances, from tariffs to deportations. Just last month, Seoul pledged $100 billion in U.S. energy buys to avert EV duties. The raid risks souring that goodwill. For the EV sector, it's a wake-up call. The U.S. needs 1 million chargers and millions of batteries by 2030 to hit climate goals. Foreign firms like Hyundai fill the gap, but visa snarls could slow progress. "We can't build the future without global talent," said United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain, urging visa reforms. Immigration policy looms large too. With 11 million undocumented in the U.S., workplace raids target employers as much as workers. But sweeping up allies like South Koreans. It blurs lines, potentially deterring investment. Georgia loses if the plant delays, Hyundai loses if U.S. sales suffer. On a human level, stories emerge. Detainee on Tae Woo, 42, a father of two, spent days in Folkestone worrying about his kids. "I just wanted to provide," he later said via family. Their return flight symbolizes closure, but scars remain.